There we go. All right, cool. I got 2 minutes past. Do you guys think we should kick off here?
Sure.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. We got 37 attendees. Wow. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. All right. I guess I can kick us off here if you guys like. Welcome to our webinar tonight, Safe Bears. We're so glad you guys are here. I know everyone's got a lot going on right now, especially as we get toward the end of the academic year, not to mention everyone's professional lives. So thank you so much. We are thrilled to have Russ Ballati with us tonight. Russ, I'm going to try to remember, you're Senior Project Manager, right? That's your official title?
Yes, I think that's the job classification title.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to let Russ explain what his role is and provide the update in just a few minutes here. Before we start, just a couple housekeeping items. There is a Q&A section to this night's event. The easiest way to submit your questions is in the Zoom interface at the very bottom, at least on the computer. There should be a little Q&A button. It looks like a pair of talk bubbles. If you hit that, you can ask your question or make a comment. I encourage you guys who are attending tonight, and also for the rest of our panelists, as questions occur to you, please drop them in the Q&A. We won't stop and necessarily answer each one the second it drops, but we'll collect them. And then after Russ is finished speaking, people like myself and the other moderators here, we will start curating questions and serving them up for Russ to tackle. So please make use of that Q&A tonight. This webinar, as some of you guys saw, is being recorded. So if you have friends, other Cal parents who wanted to be here but can't, rest assured in just a day or two, we'll put an email out and give you a link to tonight's recording. My name is Sagar Jatani, president of Safe Bears for at least a couple more hours, a couple more days, before we have our changing of the guard. Welcome, everybody. I'm joined here by several folks on our board in no particular order other than where they're falling on my Zoom screen. We got Steve Ravelette, who's back from Australia in the flesh.
Hi,
We got,
everybody.
hey, Steve. We got Ingrid Safranik. Did I say it right?
Yep.
All right. Ingrid, our treasurer, is here with us. Thank you, Ingrid. We got Melissa Kerpel. Melissa, thank you for joining us from Chicago. We also have Victoria Cole and Bruce Bauer. I'm going to put you guys in the same intro there because both Victoria and Bruce serve on our advisory board, our advisory council, and we're so grateful for their service and for helping us out all these months in Safe Bears. Before I hand it over to Russ, just one quick thing I wanted to mention. I know a lot of you guys are going to be up on campus helping your bears move out. And I wanted to let you know that Safe Bears is doing something kind of cool. We decided as a board that we wanted to purchase a billboard close to campus to show our gratitude to a couple of groups. One is UCPD, the campus police, for all their efforts keeping our bears safe all this time, as well as the city police, Berkeley PD. So I'm going to screen share here, and hopefully this plays nice because I know screen share has been an issue. Bear with me 1 second. No pun intended. You get that, what I did? Bear with me one. No, it's all right. It's all right. All right. It's okay. All right. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for those who know the map, I'm sure a lot of us parents know this pretty well by now. This is the campus here, and this little push pin here is where our billboard is. It's right on University Avenue, I believe it is, across from the Trader Joe's, not too far from the Berkeley Police Department. And in terms of what we are going to be showing, it is a very big version of this. So this billboard, it should be up now. I emailed the billboard company earlier today, haven't got a confirmation yet, but I have a favor to ask. If folks tonight who are going to be on campus, if you happen to be by the Trader Joe's and you see this, please take a photo. Take a photo, share it on social media, in addition to the Safe Bears discussion group. This will be running basically all summer from April 29th, yesterday, until I think July 29th, for 3 months. So we thought it was important to just show the police agencies our gratitude. It doesn't happen very often in Berkeley. So hopefully you guys can take a look at that and take a picture when you have a chance to do so. I'll stop sharing now. And I'm going to turn it over to Russ, who will introduce himself, explain his role, and talk about some of the many things that the administration is working on right now to enhance student safety. And again, as you guys have questions, please drop them in the Q&A.
Thank you, Sagar, and it is a true honor, and I completely appreciate being able to come and speak with you. I've been following Safe Bears now for the last at least 2-3 months or so. I don't know, Sagar, when we started talking, it must have been back in November, somewhere around there. I appreciate what you all are doing. I'm part of the administration. I'm a project manager. As Sagar put it, a senior project manager is how they put me on paper. And I've been doing that for a long time. That's probably why I'm labeled a senior project manager. I've been around doing this since the early 90s. I started off at Accenture. I was a manager there I left there after 5 years, recognizing that I didn't want to be a partner because I saw that they were just going to be on planes all the time. And I didn't want that for my life. So I moved on and did all the kind of the private sector stuff, did the .com era, and then realized that I wanted a little something more to do, to offer of myself, since I had been working as a project manager for quite some time. And my kid was just born, and I saw the writing on the wall that my kid living in Oakland was going to go to Oakland schools. Not that Oakland schools are bad or anything, but they need some help. Just like all K-12 education, I felt at the time needed a lot of help. So I transitioned my skills into the K-12 world, and watched as my child went through actually went to parochial schools in Oakland, maybe partially from the work that I was doing in Oakland, and also with charter schools. I saw the right fit for my kid. And then my child was ready to go to school. She's at UC Santa Barbara right now. And I am also a Gaucho alumni. I was there back in the late 80s. Go Gauchos and Bears. I love the Bears too, of course, because I've been here for a while and I'm a local, grown and raised in the East Bay. So she went off to college just as I was transitioning to Berkeley. So I consider myself not a helicopter parent, but a satellite parent. So my kid goes to K-12 and I watch down from a satellite and try to change things for my kid. And then she goes off to higher ed, and I try to go to higher ed and change things in higher ed. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand with my career. And that brought me to Berkeley. And they brought me in to redesign their support systems, their administrative support systems, to this regional model of providing support to the schools and the departments. And that was my foray into Berkeley. So I learned a lot in that section. And then the pandemic came, and they asked me to help out with the pandemic. And it was a big, huge, I mean, there was 50 to 100 people in the pandemic planning and execution, but I like to consider myself at that time a glorified note taker. And so I was kind of helping shepherd things through. And that kind of got me in the door with safety efforts. And the chancellor, I don't know if y'all probably weren't around when the chancellor came out with her Reimagining Campus and Community Safety Initiative, which had things like moving some services out of UCPD and into other areas like security technologies, cameras. We moved a fingerprinting station, building access, moved to facilities for the most part. We had moved the Office of Emergency Management out of UCPD and into the VCA, the Vice Chancellor of Administration, which was just kind of a different dotted line. And the Clary office, I think y'all have met Abby. She came, I believe, to talk with you about the Warren Mead system and Everbridge. So I was assigned that. That was like 6 projects that came out of that. It was kind of a full-time job back right after the pandemic and right after George Floyd murder and all that stuff. And that then led to the UC Community Safety Plan, they came out with an initiative that had about 32 different things to implement. So they said, well, Russ, you've been doing the safety stuff. Why don't you take this on too? And, in standard fare with Berkeley, we never have quite enough people to do all the things that we want to do and need to do, being a public institution. So I worked in that area and capacity, did the UC Community Safety Plan, and there's still things, as we'll go over today, going on part of that plan. And in the meantime, we have this, I'm not sure if you're aware of the Independent Advisory Board, the Chancellor's Independent Advisory Board on policing and let's say campus community safety. They asked me to implement their annual report recommendations that were approved through the Chancellor's office. That was another 32 different initiatives to implement. So now my plate's getting pretty big with safety stuff, and it just it hasn't really stopped since then. And I'm not complaining at all, because I tell you, it's probably been the most rewarding work that I've done in higher ed because of its importance. And I can see the commitment that the administration is putting forth to this. And we now have basically an entire department, which is the group that I'm with, the Business Process Management Office. Almost everybody in that group now is working on safety initiatives. And we'll go over some of those. That's why I'm here today, is to share with you all what are the projects that this campus is doing, what they've done, and what's in progress. And we'll talk about those. And I'd love to answer any questions you all have, take back any questions that I can't answer, and bring them back. Because during all this, Safe Bears came around, and you all are pretty influential. And the Chancellor's Chief of Staff said, hey, Russ, it'd be great if you contact Sagar and see if maybe you can be like a liaison, because you got all these points out, you're talking to a lot of different people, but maybe if we could have a coordinated work, we could work together closer than perhaps you had been before. And having worked with the Independent Advisory Board, which I didn't go into detail, but there is, when I think of Safe Bears, wanting safety, wanting more police officers, the Independent Advisory Board is the exact opposite of that, right? They want to abolish policing. And being involved with that group really opened my eyes to the varying perspectives that are out there, and the importance of having perspectives. So when I with the Independent Advisory Board and all these other initiatives, so I was working on developing the campus mobile crisis response team with the University Health Services. So I'm working with the health services folks, I'm working with UCPD, I'm working with the administration, I'm working with the IAB, and I'm realizing, wow, I've got so many different, I'm getting all these perspectives that a lot of folks don't necessarily get, because most folks, the administration, protect the campus, protect the students, right? The IAB, abolish police. We've got University Health Services, let's help people in crises. And I'm getting these varying perspectives and recognizing that these perspectives come with some interests that they want to move their agendas, if you will, forward, and recognizing that sometimes they don't go well together, or they don't work well together. And that made me realize, as I'm thinking about groups like the Independent Advisory Board, that they're not so different than anybody else. We all want a safe campus. And I say that because with the Safe Bear parents, I see that loud and clear. We want a safe campus for our kids. And there's no doubt about that. Are these questions that are coming in?
I think that was just Sagar.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you can ignore that. Sorry.
So with all these perspectives, everybody wants a safe campus. Maybe there's ways that we can work together better. And so I think that's the impetus, one, for why I really am relishing this opportunity to work with Safe Bears. I get where you're coming from. I'm a parent myself, and I want a safe campus as a parent. I want it as an administrator. I want it from every angle that I've seen. And I even respect the Independent Advisory Board. I may not, align directly with all their ideas, but they come forth with some thoughts that help keep us balanced. Because I think, as we've seen with some of the things in our society that happen, the pendulum swings, swings sometimes too far. And when we don't have all our voices heard, I think that pendulum can swing further than it needs to swing. And likewise, if you only have an angle looking at abolish the police and you don't have support like from Safe Bears, that pendulum doesn't swing to the right spot, in my opinion. So I appreciate and really relish this opportunity to talk with you. I hope you'll accept me as a liaison, and I will welcome doing what I can to help establish a really good working and collaborative relationship with the administration. So there's my background. What else did I want to share with you about personal I can share my screen, am I not, or am I?
You should be able to. Let me know if you can't.
It says disabled.
Hang on one second. All right, try it now.
There we go. And I apologize for my not really fancy slides, but hopefully that'll be all right. Hopefully it at least has relevant information. And feel free to ask any questions along the way. Sagar and Steve, Ingrid, Victoria, Melissa, Bruce, stop me if there's some questions I can answer as we go.
Great.
So this is what I thought for an agenda, and we can switch this out if there's something else you'd rather look at. But as I talked with Sagar and Steve a while back, I'm a project manager, and I've been doing safety projects for the past, three and a half years. So that's really where my expertise is. Steve sent me a number of questions, and I can answer those. We can spend time on those questions, but I won't be able to give really in-depth answers. I think those are better served for conversations, particularly some of those that we're talking about, things like scooter thefts and crime, other pieces. I think there's other people that are more appropriate to have those discussions, but I'll do my best if those are questions that you'd like to answer to give what I know. Otherwise, I thought we'd go over kind of the campus safety projects, as I mentioned, look at kind of the safety stakeholders and communication flow. So how do we ensure that everybody's getting the information that they need? And I think this is an area that we've needed to work on. And I think we're making good headway in that area. And then plenty of time for Q&A and discussion. Sagar, I think you had some other agenda items. So let me know if I'm running long, and I'll be happy to pull back the reins. Sound good? So
Sounds great.
Are you going to talk about President Drake's Berkeley, what was that, communications?
We weren't planning to talk about it. I know that was part of our newsletter. We had a response on that. I mean, the short version is we found it disappointing, not least of which was because President Drake clearly was unaware that there was an incident that we were able to stop during our private safety pilot, but we weren't going to really devote any time tonight to discuss that. So I think we could just jump into your agenda here.
That's great. When I heard him talking about safety and talking about, as I was, about perspectives, hearing President Drake say, oh, and this is an example that students are safe on campus. I think that's in essence what he said. Okay, well, here's the president of the University of California. Of course, that's his perspective. Right? He's coming at it from his angle. And I think we all have our perspectives, and I think they're all important to hear. Let me then move on into some of the projects that we've been doing. Well, that's my background. I already gave you that, I think. My objective, though, is really to share with you the campus's commitment to safety. I hope that comes through with the work that we've been doing from a project standpoint. And also just to build some trust and collaboration and really open up the communication line. And like I said, I know you've had a number of different folks. I think you had Chief Pittman and Abby. Maybe you've had Captain Wright on, I'm not sure. But I think you've had a number of folks visiting. And if there's any way that I can help coordinate these, I think I was talking to Abby, and she said she'd welcome coming back to talk about the pilot and how a number of different things, but I think she's always a wealth of information, particularly on emergency notification. Okay, moving down. I wanted to just frame this up. Is everybody aware of FEMA? And what they're the Federal Emergency Management Association, I guess is the A.
Mhm.
We
Agency.
saw that there, what's that?
Agency.
Thank you, agency. Yeah. So we recognize that we had a lot of projects going on, but are these all response projects? Or is there anything there for prevention? How are we breaking this up? And so we thought, well, the best way to categorize these would be to follow the FEMA focus areas, which are prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. So we can look and ensure that if we're just looking at response and not about prevention or protection, then we're probably not addressing all the areas that we need to. We're just always going to be, responding when there are issues out there. So we thought that this was a good way, at least, to frame up the different projects that we're addressing, and we can then communicate better out to our campus and to the administrators to get their inputs on where we should be focusing our time and attention.
And I love that you bring this up because I think a lot of people don't focus on prevention, right? We're kind of stuck in the response. So I love this perspective. Thank you for bringing it up.
You're welcome. So let's see if I can get everybody's pictures out of the way. There we go. These are projects that have been recently completed. When I say recently completed, since 2022. And I mentioned earlier the Chancellor's Reimagining Campus and Community Safety. Some of these I've already mentioned, but I would like to go through them so you have a better understanding of what they are and where they are, and get your thoughts and any questions you may have. I'm not sure if you all have talked about the Campus Mobile Crisis Response group. Have you? Yeah or no?
Yeah, we've discussed it. We understand what it is.
Okay, great. So I won't go into too much detail other than this is, I think, one of the most important things that we have programs on our campus for health and safety. This is to address mental health crises, which if y'all have kids in college and you may have kids in high school, mental health is a serious issue right now, anxiety and beyond. So this campus mobile crisis response goes out to a person in crisis to give them supports. And it's somewhat unique in that it's got a clinician, and it also has an EMT. And then we have a peer support group that's in the background to help with postvention supports, some prevention supports. This all comes under a curriculum of care that is in development. That's a larger initiative. The way it's explained to me is when you have somebody in crisis, they've in essence fallen into the river, and we need to get them out of the river and help them. But before they fall into the river, there's a lot that we can do to help that person avoid falling into the river and having crisis. And then when you do pull them out, you need to give them some supports so they don't fall back in. And so the campus mobile crisis response is really about when somebody falls into the river. They're in crisis. This is the worst day of their life. I need some help. They call the campus, they get some supports. So this project has had its initial launch, and it's done its kind of pilot session. And it was, they called it a silent launch. And it was what I love about this project that hasn't been the case for other initiatives similar to this in other counties and other schools is the relationship that this team has built with UCPD. They truly are working together to ensure that the type of response that we give to a person in crisis is the right response. Because some people seeing law enforcement officers come to their aid and they're in crisis is not a helpful thing. And if they don't have a clinician, the only thing an officer can really do is issue a 5150 and send them off for a 72-hour hold. And that's typically not the best action. Sometimes it is, but when they have no other alternatives, that's a problem. When a clinician can be there on site and give some supports and give that person the supports that they need to not have a 72-hour hold, everybody wins in that program. So I'm really excited about this. I'm proud to have been a part of it. It's in its infancy. They have a lot of hiring to do. Similar to UCPD sworn officers, it's a hard field to hire for across the board, across the United States, and certainly in the Bay Area. These roles are, clinician roles, are incredibly hard to hire for. We were very fortunate to get our director from the city of San Francisco, who had a similar program, and she brought a couple folks over from her team, and that helped give that impetus, that starting place for this program. So that is going on. We expect that at the start of the next school year to be able to announce a broader range there. I think, don't quote me on this, they're 4 days or 5 days on with 3 to 5 hours. And the idea is to expand to, the goal had been 24/7. We're assessing that to see if that's the right amount of coverage. And then hiring, as you can imagine, for 24/7 is not easy. And then also the breadth of where they will serve. So we've got Albany Village, for example, that requires a vehicle. They've got a vehicle now. They've got a golf cart of sorts. Both are EV. So we've got a charging station going in for them so that they've got vehicles and they don't have to walk to all the locations where, in many cases, that's the fastest route is to walk, but they needed the vehicles. So that program is going. They've had some hiccups around, you lose one clinician and you've lost, 33% of your team of clinicians. And then we had some family issues with another who had to take leave. And so that really put things in a bit of a destable. We had change at the top. So University Health Services, a new vice chancellor is in there. I think they're associate vice chancellors. But we've had some movement around there. So that program is still developing, but it has gotten off the ground and the response has been great. The response from those that receive care and the relationship with UCPD has been a really wonderful sight to see. So it's all about, the response part. Where does a police officer come in and where do they step back? Where are they not needed at all? Trying to figure those things out are really important, fine details. So there. I spent a lot of time on that because I think that's a great program.
Russ, is this a separate group, separate from UCPD? Is just
This is not under UCPD. It's under University Health Services. So that's where there are some programs out there in the UC system where they've combined them under their police department and or under the fire department. In our case, we don't have a hospital, but we do have our University Health Services, and so it fits nicely in there. And by including UCPD in the help in designing the program, including a number of different areas and key stakeholders in mental health, it's been I think that's been a big part of why it's been successful to date. There's still work to be done, no doubt, but just getting it off the ground was an important success.
Russ, I wanted to throw one quick question at you on this. This comes from one of our attendees, Melinda, who suggested using master's students in the social work department, maybe paying them a stipend also. It could be a great experience for those students and help you guys fill that labor gap a little bit faster. Have you guys considered such an approach?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. I think it's a great question, and I will relay that question on to that team. One of the reasons that they've been hesitant to bring on student level, even master's students, is when you're going out on a call, you may be in a suicide, witnessing a suicide circumstance, things like that, that we're not sure that it's the right environment for a student who's new to the field to be indoctrinated by. So there's some caution there. And I think that caution is, let's be more conservative about how we roll this out. And that's been the same with the response with sworn officers. Right now, they do it do a response in tandem. And that's so that we'd rather learn that way than make a mistake and have a clinician with an EMT go out and get in a situation that's not a healthy one for anybody. So yes, thank you for that question. It's a great question. And we're still trying to, I think, or not we, they're still trying to, I think, figure out what's the right combination. But if we can use folks that are in that program or in that line, it seems like that's an answer to some big challenges with hiring.
Cool, thank you.
Another question I think that came up was that there are currently 3 mental health response or crisis response units now. Have there been any studies considering how many you need, or is that enough? I know you said it's hard to hire extra, so.
It's not enough to fulfill the 24/7 or thereabouts goal. So absolutely not. They have, I don't know the number, so I wouldn't want to say, but they and they do have budget to hire. It's just a matter of getting the folks in. So they're hard at work hiring. They've got, I believe they've got 2 EMTs. And so they're at that place where they can still serve students. But if you think about then the hours that they choose, it's choosing the right hours is often important. So, and again, I don't know not in that field, but it may be from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. might be the sweet spot of where you're getting the most people in crisis that you could help the most. But we get during the day. I think right now they're serving during the day. It's very similar to how the Berkeley's mental health crisis team got off the ground. And we worked with them early on to understand how they went about their program. And they started out, I think they worked on Tuesdays or Mondays and Tuesdays. And they were co-response on everything because they felt it was too risky up front to go out on calls with just a clinician.
Russ, I'm Bruce Bauer. I didn't explain earlier, but I did 31 years with
That's
UCPD.
what I understood. No,
And I've 5150'd dozens of people. One question, I raised the question about the 3 units. You've got 2 from the city of Berkeley, the city MH, and then this new one that they contracted with, and now you've got the one from the campus. I wanted to know if there'd been a study of how many actual MH need there is to have 3 different units basically chasing the same issue. Have they looked at that or done any kind of studies?
Well, I don't know about having done studies, but what they have done, particularly for our campus, the idea was serving our campus with our mental health team. And we have in-house supports, right, from University Health Services. This is an opportunity to help serve our students and our faculty and our staff in mental health crisis. The city of they're serving Berkeley. So it seemed a whole lot better to have very specific services where we know our clientele. I'll tell you, the original plan for this was to go beyond our students and faculty and staff, but jurisdiction becomes a real challenge. So particularly because we don't have a health center. So there's, and I don't know the details around reporting and what you can and can't do. And so that's become a barrier, but I think for all the good, and like you said, there are other programs that are out there, but a lot of the calls that come in for mental health support are not our campus community. It's our community, not our campus affiliates.
Russ, can I jump in with a question that is probably a little further down on this slide?
Yeah.
It has to do with active threat preparedness. This is something that a lot of parents have been asking about, especially since that shooting incident in Lower Sproul Plaza from back in, was it February? When that happened, while everybody, I think, agrees, it was great that UCPD caught the guy very, very quickly and that nobody was hurt. There was obviously a a lot of time that elapsed before any official communication went out from the administration about that incident. And then when it did go out, it was vague at best as to whether that even was about the shooter or not, because it didn't mention the word firearm or gun or shooting or what have you. Have there been any changes based on the learnings that occurred that day since that time?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And the project that I'm mentioning here had transitioned. That project was geared towards, hey, we got to look at this. You know, we're just getting, this was even before the new director of the Office of Emergency Management came on board. And so we got to take a look at this, because there's a lot that we can do to shore things up. And emergency notifications, by the way, is a key part of that, as you know. This one it says, oh, we went with what are our quick hits? Because we know there's some things that are going to take some more time. What are some things that we can knock out right away? So things like the loudspeaker and sirens and getting these things shored up, some things like fax and providing some training options and whatnot, all kind of came out. What came out on after the incident with the active shooter, obviously, you know, that showed some glaring areas for improvement, particularly with the communications. And I've heard the explanations and the thought process, and I know that they went down the steps that they felt were correct, and we have learned and we've worked at implementing some of these changes. So, for example, when this call came in, we didn't have a message that a one button solution notification, right? A template created for this type of scenario that you could just hit, right? We had one dispatch person on. I think it was a time when we had one dispatch. And when there's something like an active shooter, you have hundreds of calls coming in, and you have to dispatch officers to the scene, and you have to get out an emergency notification. That is one of the clear areas that we see that we need to work on and resolve, is how do we get the right supports in place to ensure that we can get an emergency notification out. So some of the changes that are happening, I may get this wrong. This wasn't a project that I was on with these things. They have filtered into a project that I'll mention in a little bit. But making sure that they've got Sergeant, I want to say Sergeant, but Bruce, I'm not sure what the role is.
Retired.
to oversee and ensure that we have somebody in place. They also put 24-hour responsibilities, and I think Abby and the director of the Office of Emergency Management are on that, as along with two others, so that we've got coverage all the time for making a response as needed. And so they're absolutely looked at that, and it was an area that spent a lot of time saying, wow, there's clearly, we had this active threat preparedness effort, and how can we be in this space where there's still communication issue? Now, that said, there were protocols that were actually followed, because had they put out a different template than the template that they've now redesigned, they may have been wrong about what the incident was saying. I think it was one of these, was it the Daily Cal that came out and said shots fired, 2 people down, or something of the sort?
Mhm.
I'm sorry that I get my facts wrong on all this stuff, so don't quote me on it. But had they put the wrong, what you don't want to do is give the wrong information. And the challenge is, what information can you give out? Because you have all this other information that people are going to when you don't get a notification. And that's, I think, where we were a little bit shortfall, is getting at the right template. So now they have a template that says merely shots fired, avoid the area, and whatever else. And that is a really important distinction, because now it's much easier for a dispatcher to get those notifications out immediately.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I did a good job explaining that, but that's my understanding.
Russ, is the text notification a new enhancement? I know that we received a text notification about some guy who had a gun and a bat near the Greek last week or something. So is that a new enhancement? Because I know everything was going through email before.
So there's, and this will take Abby Abby's your expert on emergency notifications, but there's 3 types, and I'm going to get the wordings of them wrong. There's one type of a notification that's like a timely warning that goes through email, which is why this active shooter, by the time they got the message out, the shooter had been apprehended. So the decision was made that this is a timely warning because the person's been apprehended. It's now kind of after the fact. That was where we needed to correct how the messaging goes out. So there's 3 different types. Bruce, maybe you know better, but there's timely warnings, emergency notifications, and another one. Those other, which 2 come through text and email, but the timely warning does not. And I think I've got that right on which goes to email. But under that, in that particular circumstance, that was it was sent as a timely warning or as an email only.
And I think,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Russ, I think that the emphasis on that particular incident was that it took 40 minutes. And then listening to the broadcast from the dispatcher, because we were able to obtain that, she was asking over and over for someone to come into the office and send out notification because they were getting bombarded. She was getting overwhelmed. So you're saying that that's been corrected?
To the extent that we have oversight for that person, and we'll have to bring in, I think it'd be better to bring in Sabrina or Chief Pittman to talk about dispatch and these specifics. It wasn't one of my projects. I'm just giving you kind of hearsay to how the issue was dealt with.
Just one more thing on the warn me's. A lot of parents contact us asking, there's not really a lot of information in those warn me's, particularly like who are you looking out for? Who do we want or need to avoid? Like descriptions. And, as we listen to the broadcasts on the Safe Bear side, we're hearing those descriptions and we know what's going on. But when the warn me's come out, they're hardly any type of description at all. It just seemed a bit not helpful in that respect. Has there been any discussion regarding more description, what they're wearing, weapons and things like that?
Those conversations are going on constantly. The warn me messaging is absolutely a priority to figure out. And it's not as simple as just give us everything you got, because there are reasons and why I would welcome Abby to come back in and talk about this topic, because I think it's an important one, about what information should you offer out when there's an active shooter. I've heard arguments that say you don't give too much information out, like where the shooter is, because now the shooter's probably getting these notifications as well. You're giving that person more information. I mean, there's, you name it, but there's also regulatory reasons. And I think Abby would be much better to be able to answer those questions.
Hey, Russ, it's Sagar. I got a quick question for you. I know you have some slides here and questions are starting to come in, and I'm getting some more on my phone from folks who can't figure out the chat here. Do you want to take a couple minutes to bang through the rest of your slides so we can get to Q&A? Because I think that's going to be the part that a lot of folks really want to get to.
You got it.
Cool.
All right. Getting back to the projects. So I mentioned with the Chancellor's Reimagining Campus Community Safety, we had the Campus Mobile Crisis Response. Security technologies were manipulated, moved, and changed to some degree out of UCPD or in coordination still with some parts with UCPD. We did that work. A new fingerprinting location, so new employees didn't have to go into Sproul Plaza and Sproul Hall to get their fingerprints done at the police station. They could go to different locations. We moved out the Office of Emergency Management, the Clary office, to point to different areas reporting instead of UCPD. And then the UC Community Safety Plan, by and large, the big pieces are the Police Accountability Board. This is an independent board to handle complaints against sworn officers. To date, I think they've had one complaint to deal with. I'm not on that board. I only helped to set it up, but I know that it hasn't been as active as they thought it might be, which is a good sign. Let's see, the vehicles, uniforms, and equipment recommendations. This was kind of the highlights of this are changing uniforms. So our campus security officers, they have campus safety officers, they now have new uniforms, and the idea is to not make them look militaristic. So there's uniform changes. Our campus mobile crisis team has uniform changes. We're still working on our SPOs, security patrol officers, and their uniforms. It's a little more complicated because they're part of a union, and so making changes like that take a little bit of more effort. And we're still actually wondering if those changes are needed, because in some cases it's better to look as an authority figure than, you know, walking around with a polo shirt, for example. So we're still working in those areas. The Emergency Operations Center rebuild. We've got a whole new area for our Emergency Operations Center. It's built out. We've got 18 monitors, 7 of them to view different cameras on campus. We've got a few that are that we can watch the news on, social media. We've got a Zoom room that's being set up. Well, that was that first phase has completed, which is basically your minimum viable product for the Emergency Operations Center, but it's been tried and tested over these first few months, and so far it has done well. I mentioned the Independent Advisory Board and their annual reports recommendations that are approved by the Chancellor and the administration, implementing those. Active threat preparedness, we talked about. Emergency phones and panic buttons quarterly testing. So I know that the blue phones comes up quite a bit. They're part of the emergency phones. Getting those tested on a quarterly basis is an important part of the IACLIA accreditation. So we've set that up so that they're now testing them on a quarterly basis. And we moved the daily crime log from Cleary to UCPD. It should have really never moved out of UCPD, but it was part of this. Cleary's moving out, and along with it was the daily crime log. It always should have been back at UCPD. So in some regards, since the Chancellor's reimagining campus community safety, those movement of things that, you know, we've learned from, and there in some cases there's good reason why they were in UCPD, and in others they were good moves. And I think ultimately the moves have been good, but we've learned and, you know, making the adjustments as needed. So the daily crime log was one of those where needed to go back to UCPD, but there's been so short staffed that for that time being, it was fine. Some of the other things, I think you all may be aware of some of these other initiatives. These are not projects that I managed, but there's the People's Park security that today, knock on wood, that's been a really successful effort. Very expensive, but very successful as well. The night shuttle expanded service. Fiat Lux was going around and identifying where the campus needed better lighting. And that was I think that was a really good program. I know they did at least 2 walks around with students, graduate students, other administrators, and identified where we needed better lighting. The IACLIA certification, I mentioned that. The blue light phones reviewed. So apart from the testing is really just testing the connection. Like you pick up the phone and does it go to the dispatch? Same with panic buttons. You know, is the panic button working? Does it go to dispatch? But there's other parts, there's networking, there's technology components to that. That was done last year. I'm looking at all of the blue phones. They've also been looking at the placement of blue phones. You know, we should be able to see a blue phone from another blue phone so that there's not any blind spots. And I know that Kylan, I think you had on last month, has been a big supporter, and I think his group, the SUC GA Safety Task Force, has worked with the administration to ensure that we've got blue phones in the right places. We've mapped all of the blue phones very nicely so that the interactive mapping, so we can go in and see the status of each blue phone when we do the testing and so forth. A lot has gone into the blue light phones. Obviously, we hired Chief Pittman, who, in my opinion, has been a fantastic hire. I think she's phenomenal. Residential safety ambassadors. I know y'all are very familiar with that. Campus loudspeaker and siren upgrade. We mentioned that as well. And those you can hear. I think they go off on Wednesdays at noon. It might be monthly, if not weekly. I'm not sure. There we go. So that's what's been happening. Let me go into what is happening. This new non-sworn safety role, that's a big topic for this group. And I would love to give you the best information to say that we are in the hiring process. This is as complicated as I've seen on projects, is getting the right role and the right people doing this role. We've been working with our labor relations team. We've been working with the chief. We've been working with the UCOP. Did you have Jody Steiger on? I think you may have. Is that from?
We've the leadership has talked with Jody before, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we're working diligently, I promise you, to get this role identified and filled as soon as possible. Creating a new role would take a long time to get hired and trained. There's some of the options are looking at the security patrol officer role and expanding that to give them another tier to strive for, which would include more responsibility, more professional development, higher pay. So there's a lot to be worked out, and getting our ELR, employee labor relations folks, they're involved with this, and we're hoping to get, as it shows there, by September, have our first begin hiring.
Can I just piggyback for a split second, Russ, on that point? Because I want to make sure all the attendees on this call understand how huge that is. So the non-sworn safety role, to me, has always been very similar to what we just did with our private safety pilot. Having folks who are not sworn police officers, but nonetheless working in a security role, basically patrolling, making sure that students and other members of the Cal community are safe, like the USC Yellow Jackets. So this is what we're talking about. So we're saying best case here, we're looking at maybe hiring as soon as this September.
Yes, to begin the hiring process. Now, with the understanding that once you've hired them, and we're hoping if it's from within, which is ideal because they know our campus and community, that there is still some professional development that has to take place. So this is our estimated day. And again, we're working with the unions. We've been told if this is a new role, it's painfully slow and arduous. Not just the union, there's every step of the way, creating a new role, going up through the system wide to get that role set up. There are steps, and I know we've been working at this. Sagar, you and I have had discussions about this in the past. It's painful, and we know that it's important. And
Russ, I guess my question is, because I like you said, I think I've heard this role being in progress or in the making for a while, and it always comes back to, like you say, your labor relationships, your unions. Is there a way to bridge that temporarily, right, where right now you're not able to deploy it until the role has been identified, right? All the specs are put together and approved. In the meantime, we have all the parents that will say, until then what, right? Like, until then, what is the solution or the suggestion? And is it possible, possibly, you mentioned that you're in charge of the People's Park security, which I think, not in charge, but that project is still ongoing and it's doing well, but they do have private security. So is this a situation where a bridge temporarily can be placed with private security to perform the role until these people can be brought in as into the university program? Is that an option?
I think that's a great question. I'm not the right person to answer it. I think if it was as easy as just that, it would have happened. I know that there's some reservations and some concerns. I think your pilot program is a great opportunity to provide a recommendation. I mean, it's already been provided, I think, to some degree, but I think the outcomes of that program is informative. It helps the administration make a good informed decision. Now, that said, there are reservations with that program relative to the new safety role. They're different. And I would welcome, getting Captain Wright or Chief Pittman, I think, could speak to this, as well as perhaps someone like Mark Fisher or Vice Chancellor of Administration or others. But I'm probably not the best person to answer that, and I'd hate to answer it wrong because I know it's such a sensitive
complex.
topic. Yeah, and I understand it, and it makes total sense to me. And as I've talked with Sagar, I mean, this is when you're in a public sector organization. Things not that it doesn't. We don't want to get this off the ground and running. I guarantee you, we've got my other cohort project manager. She has been working on this, and thankfully we have her because she's the one knocking on the doors and helping make things move forward.
And I'll plant a seed and say, if by any chance there's any way the university can donate to a nonprofit so the nonprofit can run the program in the interim until that is done, I think that could be a possibility without naming the nonprofit.
I was gonna say, do you have a specific nonprofit in mind, Ingrid?
It ends with bears and starts with safe, but I won't say anymore.
Yeah.
Russ, just to kind of come on that same subject of the non-sworn role, is it your understanding, because we were reading the description of the job, and is that an on-campus only position? And they cannot step off.
One of the questions about serving in and around the campus. I'm not the right person to answer that. My understanding with how patrols happen, it's around where we have jurisdiction. But again, I wouldn't want to answer that question without, I wouldn't want to give you the wrong information.
But that's a good question, I think, to bring back to the administration, right? Because it makes a difference. A lot, if not all of our students live off campus, right? There's no residential, at least as I know it, within the campus itself. So as you patrol within the perimeter of the campus, and these kids are having to walk, even the RSAs having to walk at 2 a.m. from their spots at other housing units to their own, they have to run or figure out how to navigate the streets on their own late at night. So that would be kind of like an important thing to know, whether this particular role will cover the outside of, if you don't have jurisdiction, but that's where the kids live.
So some tells me that Bruce might have better information on what the campus zones or safety perimeter is.
Well, I think we're all aware that it extends roughly 1 mile from the perimeter, especially on the south side. Plus, you've got big residential things like Albany Village, and I don't know if I don't know how you're setting it up, but if they're going to answer non-emergency calls, that's probably where they're going to be going. We shall see.
Other projects, independent projects going on. The crisis communication development plan. So this is really looking at the plan for whatever type of emergency event, ensuring that we've got the right response and shored up, and really plugging in any gaps that we have. So this is taking the various types of emergencies and doing some kind of process analysis, if you will, to ensure that we understand and have all of the holes figured out. This again stems from the incident with the active shooter. This and it also was an output from the active threat preparedness work, was ensuring that we've got this plan developed, and now that we have our director of the Office of Emergency Management, that has been a key piece that's been missing to the whole solution. And he is, if you haven't had him on, I think he would be a great person to have on and ask questions around emergencies. May not be exactly the area that you're considering, but when you have things like active threats, the Emergency Operations Center gets activated, and he's a wealth of knowledge. He's a great addition to the team, And I think he would be a good person for you all to interview.
Great.
Moving forward, Everbridge and ProServe refinements. Again, another outcome or some of the refinements were from the active shooter issue. This has already been established. We went through the Be Smart About Safety funding from the University of California system to get some funds to hire a consultant to help us refine things like the templates that get sent out through Everbridge for emergency notifications and other areas. We just didn't have the expertise around that tool to use it to its fullest capabilities. And these consultants are in now, and they're helping us to refine the way we use that tool. And that said, there's another system out there that we're also evaluating as part of our crisis communication plan. It's called RAVE. It's used by a number of different schools, even in the UC system. And we're evaluating that to see if that might provide some of the functionality that we need for our campus. And we want to see if it's a better solution than Everbridge. It comes at a cheaper price. It's state of California is helping support it. I don't know if it's the state of California, so don't quote me. There's a group that's supporting this, so it becomes free, whereas Everbridge costs, I think, $120,000 a year. So we're going to look at that and see if that provides some better service and a better platform for emergency notifications. Run, hide, fight training.
Go ahead. Yeah, just follow up on that.
Sorry, one quick comment. Let's try to get through as much as possible because it's already an hour, and I want to make sure we get to Q&A.
Sorry about that. I meant to be going through this fast. The Run, Hide, Fight training video. So there was a communication that went out to the campus community on Run, Hide, Fight that actually came out a week before the active shooter incident. This is more formally creating a Berkeley-centric training video, which I'm finding out a lot about production in these types of videos. That's it's pretty complicated, and we want to make sure it's in the right tone, giving the right information. So we've got a team of 8 to 10 folks that are helping advise, and a production team that's external that's helping put this together. The emergency operations rebuild, I mentioned that phase 1 completed. We've got more to do there to help make that center really sing like a first class emergency operations center should. Prevent to recover end-to-end process evaluation. This is a huge initiative, and it's really in helping support of the Office of Emergency Management to look at our processes when we think about emergency response from end to end. We talked about the prevent to recover from the FEMA areas, really taking all of this and documenting out and ensuring that we have good governance around all these processes so that we are on it. And when there are holes to be found, we have efficient ways to filling those holes. This is I have a TBD there because I think that will take quite some time to document all of these processes. Safety tools, IT governance. This is around all the tools that we use, and it's IT's version. It's a portion of an overall IT governance effort, but specifically we're looking at and concerned with the safety tools that are out there. How is IT fit to support these? Do they have the right folks in the right place? Where are they missing people to best support some of these IT tools? And then the Independent Advisory Board, they come out with an annual report every year. And each year some get approved or refined, and then we have to implement those recommendations. Other initiatives, campus safety officer hiring. These are CSOs. As you know, I think was reported, they've done a great job at hiring for this role. I think there was one question that was in the list that says, it went from X number down to X number at the end of the school year. And I think that's a natural flow because we're talking about students, and students come and go. They graduate, and now you got to replace. So I think it's typical to have a low at the end of the school year and a ramp back up at the beginning of the school year. And they've done a great job at hiring. There was a question also around the hiring and the challenges and how can we get more hired. I don't think that's the problem. There seems to be some good interest in this role, and it has ramped up significantly. So when we talk about boots on the ground, on campus. These folks, while I understand they're students, we don't want students responding to potential crime incidents, but they are there for visual aids and to help get students from point A to point B.
Russ, I think you'll find it's community service officer, not campus safety officer.
Oh, my bad. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, increased security patrols. Okay, and there we go.
Fantastic, Russ. Thank you. That's oh, there's more. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I got
No
2 more slides, but I'm just going to run through this. This is just to give a sense of this is our stakeholder analysis, and we do this on all our projects. But when we think about safety, we have campus safety sponsors. So I'll go over in just a second, but it's in essence our Vice Chancellor of Administration, Chief of Staff, to the Chancellor, and also Chief Pittman, as our Chief of Police. They're our campus safety sponsors, so they help us make the big decisions. We have some folks that are in very close alignment with them, and these are just all the varying stakeholder groups that we have going all the way out to the end, where we've got the city, we've got their UCs, you name it. We'll see parents and safe bears are in here as well. So ensuring that we're communicating out to all the appropriate folks, I think is one of the areas that we've focused some attention on, particularly in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months, to help ensure that we have the right communication channels set up. And this is probably hard for you to see and read, but it breaks down. I mentioned the campus safety sponsors. We have an all hazards group. This is more emergency response related, emergency management, of which our director for the Office of Emergency Management leads that group. And it consists of a number of other groups, the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, our Executive Crisis Management Team, and also our Active Threat Preparedness and All Hazardous Preparedness group. Then we have the Campus Safety Partners. This is a much broader group. It contains, I think there's probably 30 plus folks, and we talk about campus issues, current event campus issues. So you can imagine the protests have been a big issue. When there was the active shooter, big issue. I mean, there's been all kinds of plenty of stuff to talk about within this group. But the important part is ensuring that communication is going out to campus. So these folks act as the conduit for ensuring that we've got many of these groups that have an interest in safety on campus, ensuring that we're all aligned. And this is where, again, I think it's very important. You'll see here, we have a safety liaison to Safe Bears, to the Independent Advisory Board. And that's, again, to help ensure that we've got the right channels of communication, that information is being shared so that we can all be on the same page. And there.
Fantastic. That's a lot, man.
So long.
That's a lot. No problem. Thanks for going through that. I hope you guys you found that as informative as I did. There's a lot there that's going on. So Russ, I'd like to get some questions, and the rest of the team here can help get through these because there's been quite a few. One that so there's some specifics here. I'm going to throw it to you, and then you tell me if you can answer these.
Okay.
One is from a mom, Katrina, who said, our daughter is committed to Berkeley. We're still undecided and hesitant due to the crime around the campus. Can you tell us what is being done to increase safety at the residence halls specifically? Now, because it looks like their situation is that they would be starting in the fall. I know some of those dates you just shared with us indicated a fall start time, but could you speak more specifically to residence hall safety?
Yeah, I would, I'm not going to be able to speak I think we're better served with either, I'm trying to think who would be the right person, maybe from Sunny Lee's group, Student Services, or UCPD. But I know we have the ambassadors, and they're ramping up the number of ambassadors and wanting to increase the hours. But I don't have specifics, I'm sorry, around the residence halls.
Okay, no problem. And rest of the team, feel free to jump in. I know you're all fielding questions as well. Russ, you brought up the campus protests a moment ago. I know this has been on a lot of parents' minds. And this is obviously a very fast-moving situation, not only for Cal, but at many universities around the country right now. What can you describe? What is the Cal administration's approach to dealing with this? Some universities are taking specific steps that are visible from the outside. Others are not. And I've talked with a couple of Cal parents over the past week who, interestingly, even though I think I can fairly say they were on very different sides of this question about the protests, they both agreed that they seemed frustrated with the university's approach because it seemed like it was to basically wait for summer in the hope that maybe this would cool down or, disappear by then when students largely disperse. But that's an assumption which may be incorrect. Could you describe like what is the university doing to ensure the safety of its members and to I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And I can assure you there's not a hope and wait right now. Berkeley has been, and I'm knocking on wood, amazingly quiet relative to some of the other campuses like USC. UCLA had a big incident, Columbia, and we're usually, our students take a lot of pride in activism and whatnot. And I give a lot of credit to UC Police Department. I give a lot of credit to our Office of Emergency Management who have activated the EOC. So this is recognizing that this is potential, ticking time bomb, so to speak. And we've got, commencement coming up and a lot of things nationwide are coming about. To date though, and some of this may be my opinion, having seen what's happening, but what they have done around when Sather Gate was, they were the signs up and whatnot. There was concerns over accessibility. Can folks get through there? And they didn't. UCPD was not, out there in uniform, trying to control this. They were there and waiting. Should it get out of control? And there was, we have more folks that were around and observing. And should it get out of control, then we would need to bring the UCPD folks. To date, I'm impressed with how they've handled that, and I've been impressed with how they've handled the encampments in Sproul Plaza. And again, I knock on wood because I know what our campus and community are. They take a lot of pride in their activism. I keep thinking in my head, they're probably thinking of what can we got to do something here. We got all these other universities in the news. I think there was even one article I heard, secondhand that came out and says, well, why hasn't Berkeley risen up? And it could be, my opinion is, and this is I don't know why I'm offering my opinion, but my opinion is that perhaps the Zellerbach incident that happened a few weeks back might have helped set a tone by communications, but from the chancellor and others on decorum and respect for one another. That may have had a big impact on why today we're not seeing as big of uprisings as other universities. Again, that's just my opinion. Yeah, question. I see your hand up.
I actually wanted to switch gears back to the safety part, and with college acceptances going on right now, and like the mom mentioned, their kids being on the fence. What is, I guess, from what you hear, the administration, the view on the importance of the role that safety is playing on maybe those decisions? And I know they've been delayed because FAFSA is late and all that, but we hear a lot from a lot of parents and parent groups that it's playing a large role in deciding whether their children will go there or not. And they want to hear back from the administration. I'm sure their kids want to go, but it's a huge concern on whether they should or not. They want to know what the administration thinks they can do and how can they ease those fears. And at this point, we're not hearing much. So I'm trying to see if from your side, what do you hear? What do you think is the temperature?
Yeah, I'm curious what the what would be the desired outreach? And I can,
I think because we've all seen different campuses activate sort of, you know, like we said, security, USC does it. USC has a great right? USC is in the middle South Central LA, and they would have a huge crime problem had they not deployed their yellow jackets. But I think there is a lot of requests by parents who think that is necessary at this time. We all get, you know, again, new parents, existing parents, we all get the warn me's, and it's always heartbreaking to hear that a student was mugged, their backpack was robbed, or he got beaten by, you know, with a baseball bat or something like that. And then again, to me, like you said, prevention is that one first step. And if you can prevent things from happening, that would be huge. But it seems to me that there's a lot of emphasis being put on not generating emotions or reactions from people. So maybe stepping back from the public view of security, because you don't want to generate certain or elicit certain emotions from students. But I think on the parent side, if we saw a presence that was preventing some of this, that would be huge.
yeah, not sure how best to answer that, other than to say that I can, from my angle, the campus, this is a top priority, and they recognize absolutely that some of the media coverage on the campus or about the campus and the crime around is a real concern. Absolutely. You know, we don't want, nobody wants to have students, you know, turn away because they're afraid of the campus. And perceptions are so important. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. It's one of the reasons why we need to bring our community closer together so we can have a more concerted effort at helping prevent crime. And the more that we have trust in one another and are working together, the better we can combat this. This is not a UC Berkeley issue. It's a East Bay issue. It's a city of Berkeley issue. It's a national issue. That said, we have to do what we can as best we can for our campus and community. And I believe that that the university and the administration is putting, they're putting, in my mind, all efforts forward to help figure out and reduce the crime and improve the safety and perception of safety on campus.
I mean, I think that's the hope. I think that unfortunately, every time we hear about comments, like you said, President Drake, and the first comment is, we live in an urban city and crime happens, right? And yes, we do, but can it be prevented? And especially for the students, right? When people are paying tuition and they're sending their children to a place where they expect them to be safe, it's a little hard to hear all this and saying, oh, don't worry about it, it just happens. You have to learn to deal with it. And also it's difficult for them. Like you said, the publicity has been, Berkeley's #1 college in the public college in the world, but it's also #1 in crime right now. And it's hard to match the two. And we all want the best for Berkeley and we all want the best for the students. So how can we come together and help that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's me working on safety projects myself and being a big part. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see the numbers that we have, and I recognize that there are things that inflate those numbers, like the scooter thefts, which are vehicle thefts. Okay, yes, but there's crime on campus, and we need to. And I can only say, from my angle and my perception, the administration takes this incredibly seriously and is devoting, like I said, everyone on our team, except maybe one or two who have other specialized duties, are working on safety projects. I mean, we're talking about an entire campus that needs, project management and process management skills, and we are devoted to helping do the best that we can, certainly with the projects that we're given to move them forward. And the administration is showing that support and bringing us in and helping us and allowing us to work on these projects. So I don't have a simple answer, and I agree with you. That's not the right answer. That crime happens, deal with it. And if that's the message that people are getting from the administration, we need to we need to come together closer so that it's very clear that the administration, this is top of the list. I think President Drake mentioned that as well from a system-wide level. I can guarantee you that I've been in front of our cabinet 3 times. I mean, I never thought I'd be in front of the cabinet, but talking about safety, it is an absolute high priority for the campus. It may look like things move slow or aren't happening, but that's really why I'm here and why you all are here, is to get information so that you can either feel more confident that the administration is doing things, and then give your recommendations for how the administration may do things differently to help make our campus safer.
If you have any input onto whose ear we can we can talk into, I think that would be very helpful as well. I mean, everybody's on the same side of the of the issue, and we all want to come together and fix it. It's just a matter of how quickly and who can do it faster. How can we get it to happen faster? But the other thing, when you mentioned about the Warn Me system and the hesitancy to put out information maybe too quickly, right? Or erroneous information too quickly. How is that balanced with the real-time ability of information, or the real-time availability of information coming through different channels, right? So when we have the Warn Me system not putting something out, and yet we have the Daily Cal, or we have kids sending Snapchats, text, videos. What is the balance there, do you think, at this point, of holding back, or what's the benefit of holding back when the information is just flowing so fast?
Yeah, I don't think there's an intention to hold back, first of all. I do think into the circumstance that we saw, there was, I think Bruce spoke to it, or I think it was Bruce. I don't have the answer. It's not my area of expertise. I would welcome, I think Abby can speak to this area. I think also UCPD, perhaps Captain Reich, can come in and give a better understanding of how dispatch works, and how we have the opportunity to establish more of a, what they call, one button solution, where communication goes out immediately. You're not taking up dispatch time. It takes certain templates. It takes the platform to be correct. It's one reason why we're looking at alternatives like Rave to potentially come in and replace Everbridge. But again, that decision hasn't been made, but I'm glad that we're looking, because that means we have to look at the functionality of the tools that we have and compare those against other tools that may be out there, and find the right solution for Berkeley. Because I agree with you, we've made some mistakes in how we get these messages out, and while we learn from every incident, we'd like to learn before we have an incident. And Sagar?
Yeah, thanks, Russ. A question coming in from a parent here has to do with the new incoming chancellor. Rich Lyons, I believe, is his name. I guess I'm going to riff on this person's original question a little bit by changing it just a second. Have you had a chance to meet with Rich yet to talk specifically about safety? And related to that, do you have any sense about how his approach on safety may differ from Chancellor Christ?
Yeah, I have not met with him. I don't think I can understand why. I don't think I'd be meeting with him just yet, but I would hope that when it comes in that I'd get an opportunity. I had the good fortune to have met with Chancellor Christ on a number of occasions. Part of that is as the staff to the Independent Advisory Board. So, I mean, with their co-chairs to have meetings about safety on campus. So I would hope to have that opportunity. Can't guarantee that I will. And I don't know what his stance is on safety.
Great, thank you. I'll jump in. There's just another question here. One of the attendees here has asked if you could distill, because there's a lot of things obviously in play that you covered tonight, Russ. You could distill this down into a couple of takeaway points for our attendees that you'd like them to all leave with. Could you describe what those would be?
Good question. I mean, number one is, I hope that that the group can see that the administration is committed and has prioritized safety. And I think that's an important part of this. I think earlier on, when I was on one of these, maybe this was earlier on, it was, I think the message that I was hearing was the campus isn't concerned or isn't responsive. I think that's changed to more of we're just responding slower than desired. I get that right. So I'd like this group to take away that the campus is absolutely committed to safety on campus. We're in alignment there. And I hope that the message is also that you all play an important part of this. Your perspective and your inputs, doing that pilot, that's a big deal. You know, and to use that in a positive way to help the administration look at the way we protect our campus and community and look at alternatives. I think that's fantastic. I think that's really important. So I would hope that from this talk and from the efforts that I've shared, that you can see there is an absolute commitment to safety. We recognize where we stand amongst the universities on crime, and we want to make that change. So your participation and collaboration is part of the solution. And so I would hope you take away from this that we want to work with you. And I certainly would like to be and continue to be that liaison. I hope that you'll have me back and you'll lean on me to bring folks to you that are relevant and that can help you share your concerns or understand circumstances. I think it's really important.
And I think that's a key point, right? If you can help us come to the right people that could potentially make the decisions or have answers, or we can collaborate with, that would be huge.
Right. So who should we start with?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I completely agree with Ingrid. You know, who should we start with? I think a couple of questions tonight. And I'm sorry, they're going by a little bit fast. As always, I thought there were like 2 questions, and then I realized, oh, I can scroll. Oh, wow, there's like 15 here. So I apologize for not getting to all the questions, but I know a couple of them specifically had to do with safety in the residence halls. Obviously a huge concern for anybody with kids at Cal. There was another specific question about some of the violent crime that's been happening in the West Crescent part of campus recently over the past couple of months. You know, I don't know, you'll know better than I will, Russ, if the residence halls questions are for Sunny Lee or Joe Magnus or someone else. I think it has to do with residential safety advisors also. These are the folks who are stationed at the base of the dorms after dark. Chief Pittman we probably couldn't go wrong with as well for some of the other crime that was mentioned, like the West Crescent. But I do think the residence halls they continue to be a chief area of concern. So maybe you and I can chat later about who you think might be best to come on for a follow-up conversation there.
Great. Yeah.
I think, right, crime outside of the 1 mile perimeter, how is that, you know, tackled or prevented? What is I know there are staffing issues, and you alluded to this, Russ, with UCPD. It's hard to get sworn officers. I think a lot of police departments in California and maybe other states are suffering from that. Then if that's not a quick option, then what's the alternative? Right. So how can we bridge those gaps in the interim? Because I know that a lot of police departments are taking from others by giving them a bonus, you know, lateral transfers or things like that. And sometimes just the people are not there. And as much as you want to hire, you're not able. So how can we bridge that? How can that be in the interim solved or gapped?
No, and just take the moment to a big thank you and appreciation to this group. I think that billboard, you have no idea the impact I believe that will have on the morale of our officers. If you can imagine, and Bruce, maybe you have an opinion on this, but I got to think over the last 4 or 5 years, being a police officer hasn't been the shining role that you walk out and everybody's, hey, officer. It's been a little bit tougher, and it's just a show of appreciation like that. I think it's going to go a long way. So
I totally agree. Show of appreciation is exactly what they need right now.
Yeah, and that serves to the hiring. We make this community, I think, if we can bring this community closer together in a more trusting and collaborative environment, it creates and if we can look at our officers and appreciate them and bring them back to humans, I think we stand a much better chance of creating that environment that any police officer would want to work in. And that's just my opinion. Bruce might have obviously, Bruce, you were here for a number of years, so must not have been too bad for you. And anyway, we have a lot of our officers. I gotta say, the number of Cal alumni, I mean, it's pretty impressive. It's got to be a great place to work, but it's also, I think, it's a tough time to be a police officer.
I think it's tough. And one of our concerns, I think, that parents bring is as Oakland's crime starts getting addressed, where is that crime element going to go to, right? So if Governor Newsom brings the CHP to Oakland to clean up Oakland, then where do they go? They probably go to the next neighboring town. And that's something to keep in mind, and how to prevent that and get ahead of the game before it actually happens.
And I heard that same argument for People's Park. Okay, so we've now made People's Park area safer, where it has all the crime gone. And too early to tell, but there will be interesting to see. I'm not sure that numbers have sparked around the campus anymore than they have been. So it'll be interesting to see what the impact of that is.
I can tell you anecdotally, Russ, like a lot of parents on this call, I've been helping my kids secure housing for the next academic year. And whenever we look for apartments, first thing I do, being who I am, is pull up crimemapping.org or .com, whatever it is. And it's interesting, if you look at the map, just, say 3 months before the closure of People's Park, and then 3 months after, and you restrict your view to the south side, I think you are already seeing an impact in that there is a reduction of crime. Now, as everyone likes to say on the internet, correlation does not equal causation, but it's suggestive anyway, that by taking those steps the university took, it does appear to have made a significant positive impact on the South Side neighborhoods.
I think that was commendable. I know it was not an easy battle, and but it was impressive that the university actually went through with it and decided to take the steps.
Yeah, and we'll knock on wood that it all continues as it has. I mean, the university's been trying for many years to take that and build some student housing. So I think, again, knock on wood, that we've crossed a certain plateau, and hopefully we'll be able to start building soon.
Well, I know it's 7:30 Pacific now, and I think we scheduled an hour and a half originally, didn't we? Am I correct about that, Safe Bears team? Russ, thank you. Thank you so much for meeting with us. I know there was a lot of questions all across the board, some of which you could answer, some of which were a little outside the scope of what you could respond to tonight. But I thank you for being here. This is obviously the first of what we hope will be many more discussions with you. We're very glad that you are our liaison. For the attendees tonight, I know some of you guys had questions either we didn't get to or we couldn't necessarily answer tonight. Please do follow up with us, whether it's in our Facebook discussion group, which a lot of you belong to already, or if not, join. But also you can email us at contact@safebears.org, especially some of the newer members here who are even prospective families, not quite sure yet what you're gonna do, please email us, and when we get some more specifics through our conversations with Russ and his team, we'll be happy to pass those on to you. But yeah, thank you everybody for showing up tonight and being part of this group. We're so thrilled that you guys were all able to make it. And
Russ.
again, I'll be sharing the recording of this call in the next day or two.
Yeah, and thank you to Russ for, being candid with us, and I think giving us all the information you have. I know it's a tough spot to be against parents who are are clamoring for more
Oh, no,
safety.
you don't know. I can, y'all are great. To your point of view, tough group. You got been advised, but those folks they're sharp and they're tough. And like I said, I think it's really important for us to keep these lines of communication open, be collaborative, and build our community together so that we can help fight crime and make our campus a safer place. And I truly believe that we're on that swing. We may be at the bottom of that swing, but I do believe we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and 100%. I think the idea is we're not against the university or the administration or anybody. We're just here to help, and we're trying to figure out how we can help. So we would love nothing but to be not needed anymore.
Right, absolutely. Totally agree.
But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I hope you'll.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.